next question for all of you is going to be one: how did you discover that you are an author of mysteries, or that mysteries are maybe not the only genre you want to write, but your preferred genre? And then two, how did you find your way to the Speed City Sisters in Crime? And we'll go the exact opposite way this time. So, Janet, I'll ask you to start.
Well, I found my way there. As I said, I retired from a corporate job in 2015, and I decided that, hey, I always wanted to be really write fiction. I have nothing holding me back. No time constraints, so I started signing up for classes again at the Writers Center. That's when I met, Suzanne Harding, was teaching a series of classes that it was really, really a lot of fun. She invited me to join like a small group of writers that she had gotten together called In Mysterious Company. And what we did, and from there, I just met some other writers who were also very much involved in the Speed City chapter of Sisters in Crime. So I decided to show up to see what it was like. And, it's like you find your home when you find yourself surrounded by a lot of, fun, smart, creative people. So, I mean, that's how I got involved.
And were you always thinking, I know you covered crime and politics. I don't know which is more distasteful when you were writing. Were you always thinking that this will lead me to a career as a crime mystery writer, or did you just happy accident?
Well, I actually came to Indianapolis because I was offered a job covering criminal court, and that was the most interesting job. I worked for a newspaper in Pittsburgh that went out of business. And I had my resume out like all over the country, and I actually had I was lucky enough to get several offers, and I didn't choose the one with the most money. I didn't even choose the city where I already knew somebody. I looked at the job and I thought, geez, wouldn't it be fun to cover like murder and mayhem? So I came to Indiana, and I ended up, one of the first cases I covered was, some of the tail end of the Mike Tyson stuff. So, sitting there in court, I got a seat like right, they sat the recorders right in the jury box. So like, I'm like, 5 feet from, some of the biggest characters of the day, Mike Tyson, like from here to here. And I had a front seat. I had a front row seat to that. Saw, Alan Dershowitz in action in the courtroom. Saw him in action on the street, and at that moment I realized that you cannot trust a single word that man says, because what happened in the courtroom is not what he described on the street. I can't believe that I was shocked by that, but nothing. So that kind of got me in. But I've always been interested in mysteries and writing, and I kind of grew up watching Perry Mason as a little kid with my mom. And I still catch Perry Mason reruns when I can today. So no, I always wanted to write. I think I wrote my first mystery when I was in about 6th grade. It was a murder in a haunted house.
Oh, fun. And I should mention that the views but regarding Alan Dershowitz do not reflect the views of the Middle Grade Ninja podcast. Those are and Cheryl, I should mention, I'm chatting with all Hoosier authors this evening, esteemed audience. The regular esteemed audience members know that Indiana authors always get top billing, top priority at the Middle Grade Ninja podcast. So I'm thrilled to have 4 Hoosier authors for you this evening. Cheryl, same question to you. When did you know you wanted to write mysteries, and how did you come to be involved with the Speed City Sisters in Crime?
Well, I always liked reading mysteries, so writing mysteries seemed to be the logical next step. And I belonged to a writing group here in Indianapolis, but it was a general writing group, and I think I was getting a little bit frustrated with the feedback I was getting. And I had a friend who had just gone to a Sisters in Crime meeting to hear a specific speaker as part of the program. So found out when they were meeting and showed up. Started going to a critique group, which I found so much more helpful than my general critique group at the time. This was probably 15, 20 years ago, maybe 15. And I just felt like I'd found my people who understood me. They got where I was. Yeah. So they really helped me on the process.
And then Tony?
Well, I think like Cheryl, and I think Janet said something similar. I grew up reading mysteries, loved the Hardy Boys. Remember having a copy of the Hardy Boys Detective Handbook. It was a prized possession. And so I just, really, I just loved mysteries. And although I went through a short science fiction phase in high school, by and large, mysteries have always been a part of my reading, my set of reading materials. I just always loved it. But I didn't really think about writing a mystery. I had been writing all through college and into graduate school. And in graduate school, I discovered that I had the ability to stick with a long project because I wrote a couple of musicals, co-wrote a couple of musicals with some friends that we actually produced on stage. And so after graduating and going into a profession, public relations and advertising, where I was doing a lot of writing, I began to think that, as I was going through an Agatha Christie phase at the time, and I thought, I could write one of these. I mean, how hard can it be? Well, it's an amateur sleuth. I was reading this Marple. Look, it's an amateur sleuth, right? I mean, so they know somebody's lying, and so they go around until they find out who's lying the most. And anyway, I did find out how hard it could be. And the first novel that I wrote is so bad it's locked away in the attic and no one will ever see it. But, in fact, I think I've thrown it away since then. So no one will definitely ever see it. But along in writing that, I got the idea for the Nick Bertetto series, a stay-at-home dad, former investigative reporter that has a knack for solving mysteries with a supernatural element, and did 3 of those. And then because my publisher had decided they didn't want to publish any more of those, and I get that. I began to think about what else I wanted to do, and I loved cozies. Obviously a Miss Marple fan. I'm a fan of amateur sleuths, and also loved like Diane Mott Davidson, who wrote a lot of culinary mysteries, and loved Murder, She Wrote. And I thought, this is somewhere I wanted to go with more of a cozy type feel. So came up with the Bucket List mystery series, which is about a group of older women who are trying to accomplish all the strange and wonderful things on their bucket list, but they keep stumbling over dead bodies. And that took. And so we've been, and then my daughter came on board because the editor that was publishing us at Midnight Ink really wanted a female name on the book. She felt that cozies sold better if they had a female name, and my daughter Liz, fortunately, is a wonderful writer. In fact, both my daughters are wonderful writers. I want to make that clear. But Liz was more available, and after a bit of arm twisting, and my son-in-law Tim persuaded her that this would be a good plan. I've always loved Tim. Let me just say that. Wonderful son-in-law. Anyway, and so Liz came on board, and we started doing that series. Did I answer your question? I rambled a lot.
We didn't talk much about.
I didn't talk about Sisters in Crime.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. And right after the first Nick Bertetto mystery came out, I joined Mystery Writers of America, and at the same time, I joined what was then the local Sisters in Crime chapter. It was actually I think it was called the River City chapter, and it was based out of down by the Ohio River. And then there were enough of us after some time, after several years, there were enough of us that we started the Speed City chapter here in Indianapolis.
And then Lillie?
Well, like everybody here has said, I grew up enjoying reading, and I read the Judy Bolton, Nancy Drew, Hardy Boys, all of that. Ellery Queen, I couldn't wait to get those copies when they came out. But I never actually thought of writing. I was good at storytelling, talking through things. I was cursed with this problem that when I told the truth, nobody believed me. I could lie up a storm and everybody would believe it. So I kind of got involved in storytelling and doing contests. But then a friend of mine said, well, if you can tell a story, you can write a story. But I was like Tony, had some question of whether I could stick to a long project. So what happened was how I got started on my first book. A niece went missing, or at least we thought she had gone missing. And the family got together and was looking for her. My mom, who was a character all by herself, had tracked down this young lady's boyfriend, and she took me to the guy's house. And so she's questioning him, just like, Columbo couldn't have done better. And she coincidentally had on a raincoat and this cap, and she knew all these details about the guy. I had no idea how she found out. And so from that, and the maternal grandmother was there also, the paternal grandmother was there also. So I got to thinking, what if there were two old ladies that started a detective agency? And I decided to call it Grandmothers Incorporated. But it was an idea that bounced around until I got with my writing partner, and told her I had this idea for Grandmothers Incorporated. Now you guys know her, Crystal Rhodes, is a romance writer. But she teamed up with me, and we came up with the book, Grandmothers Incorporated. And from that, we've written Saving Sin City, There's Something Wrong with Miss Zelda, and Whose Knife Is It Anyway? So that's how I got into writing. Quite frankly, I like storytelling better, but I do the writing. And from that, like I said, we launched plays, and it's been an interesting journey. I've written before, but I was what I called a closet writer. I write all day, but you're never going to see it. And someone asked me, in fact, it was a journalism teacher, how is anybody going to know about your books if you don't write them, if you don't let people read them? And I thought, well, that makes sense. So I finally ventured out and through some magazines and I sent to some publishers. And I remember the first magazine I sent out to was ages ago. I won't say how long I've been alive, but it was a magazine a long time ago called True Detective. And I wrote a story for that, sent it in, and they got back a rejection letter, thanks but no thanks. And I promise you that within a couple of months, I'm in the grocery line looking at a copy of it, and my story is there, the one they said no thanks. So I felt after that, I can write maybe after all. So I've been encouraged with the books that I've been writing, and the writing's going on pretty well. So I'm happy with it, and that's what I'm going to stick to now that I'm not working anymore, not full-time. I used to be a government worker, but I've retired from that, so that's what I do full-time now. As for Sisters in Crime, I honestly don't remember how I got involved with them. I know where I was looking for a writer's group. I don't really remember how I stumbled upon them. But once I got there and I thought, well, okay, this is a group that's right here in town, no problem. The people were really interested in promoting, and they were interested in what you did. And some of you have some really great writers in Sisters in Crime in its Speed City chapter. And so I've been quite happy with the book. And we've been a great partnership with them. Terrific critique group. I might give a shout out to the critique group.
I should ask if you and Tony, with Tony's experience producing musicals and your experience with plays, if we can get you crazy kids together and collaboration, a wonderful mystery detective musical.
No, I don't see myself. I need Tony for a musical. I don't see myself doing that.
I was the lyricist and book. I did not do any of the music.
Well, I think if I throw out enough of those propositions, sooner or later one's going to have to pan out, and whichever one does, they will be obligated to thank me. The acknowledgments will just be tremendous for me.
Sure.